So our sixth speaker of the afternoon actually joins us from the University of Lethbridge's Calgary campus, and I'm excited to welcome Robbin Derry, Dr. Robbin Derry, to deliver this talk. It's actually the second time she's given a talk in 2020. She also participated in the TED Talk as part of the TEDx University of Lethbridge series, and I believe actually her talk was selected to go live with the full TED Talk series as well. So that's really exciting. So Dr. Robbin Derry graduated from Dartmouth College with a degree in French, excited that she would never write another academic paper. I think we all thought that when we graduated. She did a cooking apprenticeship in Paris, and she worked as a chef in various restaurants in New York City, but was very frustrated about the poor working conditions and the routine bribery of health code inspectors. So she started a small cafe in New Hampshire, but realized she didn't have a love for the restaurant business, but rather the ethical questions that arise inside organizations. So the field of business ethics at this time was just emerging as she enrolled in business school, and she found a niche where she could grapple the questions about how people's values influence the operations of organizations. A decade out of her PhD, she was offered a professorship in ethics at the University of North Carolina, but lost that job after reporting an illegal workplace violation. She mistakenly assumed that the administration would be grateful to be informed about sexual harassment of students by a professor. And she brought agreements, fought for her job, and got it back, and then learned that she's an activist and that she would not stay quiet. She started to see who would and would not be with her when she took a stand. So in the past 30 years of her academic career, she's taught at several institutions. She was a principal investigator on a major grant from the National Institutes of Health to study the tobacco industry. She's the president of a professional organization. She has organized conferences and served on editorial boards and as associate editor of business ethics journals. She has published research on marginalized stakeholders, contrasting approaches to ethical decision-making, feminist ethical theories, and creativity in organizations. Since 2007, she has taught management and ethics courses at the U of L's Edmonton and Calgary campuses. Most recently, she developed a course on gender, race, and leadership, and since she doesn't believe we talk enough about gender and race in our courses. So Robbin's lecture is titled, What to Hold On To When Everything is in Flux. Over to you, Robbin. I look forward to your lecture.
Thanks, Tony. This is really fun. Great to see everybody. I am so proud of you. I'm just really excited to be part of this opportunity to see you and talk to you one more time. Lots of my students that I've had over the last few years in Calgary are graduating, and I hope that you stay in touch. Those of you that are not graduating, if you want to sign up for my gender and race class in the fall, now that we're all online, there's plenty of room to do that. If it now seems like an important topic to be talking about in these times, be happy to have you. That would be great. I am at home in Calgary. I'm happy to be here with you also virtually. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I went through some of the sort of reflective processes that I've heard other people speaking today go through, thinking back about our lives, where those lives have taken us, choices we've made. Excuse me. And I realized that there are a number of times when things just seemed like they had gone haywire, and I didn't know what was going to come next, or I changed careers, or I realized that I couldn't keep following the religion that I had been raised in, or I wasn't going to stay in that particular relationship the rest of my life. So there have been a fair number of times when I've thought, what is it that I get to hold on to? So I decided to talk about that, not so much all the places that I've been, though I'm happy to say I can't quite compete with some of the other speakers today. I thought I had moved a lot, but other people have also made a lot of changes in their lives, so I see that I'm not that unusual. So what to hold on to when everything is in flux? And what I've discovered, as I said, it's not necessarily the things that you might think you could hold on to. Some of you may be able to hold on to one religion or one key relationship or even one family all of your life. And And you may think that those are kind of the rocks in your existence that will always be there. But sometimes those things change by your choice or other people's, by, chaos. So I decided to reflect on what I see as constants in my life and what has served me well and what I feel are really important and useful things to try to engage with the world as you go through it. So I'm going to mention 4 things, and I'll elaborate on those a little bit, and I'll just tell you quickly what those 4 are. The first one is generosity. The second one is listening. The third one is searching for hard answers. And the fourth one is moving of whatever way you think is most exciting or interesting or appealing to you. So generosity and kindness. You might think that maybe I'm just talking about joining in a nonprofit or engaging in philanthropy, or volunteering. All of those are good things. But what I really mean are the smaller things, like giving time or giving appreciation, giving insight. When you ask yourself, what do I have to give? You could come up with a list pretty quickly, I think. Hugs when they're wanted, it's good to check. Not everybody wants hugs, I've had to discover. Food, if you have it to share, a smile, an ear, a hand, all of those metaphors are actually literal things we can do to help and reach out to other people. Sometimes we think we're giving one thing like food and it actually expresses something quite different. Or we think we're just listening, but that conveys something to other people, students, neighbors, friends, family members, conveys that we care enough, or we trust them, or we believe them. We think their story is worth listening to. I have 2 20-somethings in my house now, our kids, who didn't entirely plan to be spending the spring and the summer here doing things in the household with us. And so we've all had to learn to listen to each other in new ways. This is not them being in high school. This is them being more independent people and have different views. It's a good thing. But it takes all of us learning to listen to each other and trying to empower each other in the process. I got a Facebook request the other day from somebody. I didn't quite recognize the name. I thought I recognized the name. I'm pretty good with names, but this turned out to be somebody, I wrote and said, hey, I don't know, do I want to be friends with you? Do we have something in common? And turned out to be a student that I'd had 35 years ago. And she said, do you remember when you gave me advice to get out of a relationship? And I think maybe you saved my life in that, because the woman after me, was seriously harmed in that relationship. And she said, I just wanted to find you and thank you for that. And by the way, when you had me over, several of us over for dinner, I really felt so grown up. I mean, these are sort of memories that I had not held on to. But, you give a small thing, you have a conversation, and it's really a big impact. So think about, especially maybe during these times when we're tempted to be depressed and isolated and grumpy, things are not going the way I want to. Generosity and kindness really goes far. Here's my persuasion, I hope. It's the best way of potentially recreating the world that you want. Don't you want a kinder world? So do that. Create the world that you want to be in, and just find ways to be more generous and kinder. Sometimes we have to work on that. Sometimes we're really angry. When there was that grievance in this school that I had to, that I lost my job because I had spoken out about sexual harassment, I was really tempted to slash somebody's tires. I knew I knew who had which cars. I was tempted by that. And then I thought, oh, shit. then I would turn into somebody that I don't want to be. I don't want to be pushed around by this so much that I turn into somebody different. I want to be a kind, generous person. So I'm not going to let myself turn into somebody different just because of this anger. The other important thing is that being kind and being generous has been demonstrated, good research, it raises your serotonin. So it's good for you, it's good for other people. So if you want to just, sort of feel better, the happy drug, the serotonin, do something kind. It has really powerful effects. Okay, moving on. Listening is also important, obviously, has something to do with generosity. But listening is important for so many things. And as you go through, hopefully very long lives, you will catch on that even though you know so much now as graduates, you don't know very much compared to all the things that other people know in the world. So you can listen to understand other people's perspectives. You can listen to learn more. It's really great to assume that you are not the authority. You can listen to appreciate the natural world, even when it seems silent. Be comfortable with silence. You'll start to listen to yourself better. If you're always in houses or relationships or jobs or activities where it seems like everybody's talking or everybody's playing music or podcasts, just get out for a walk so you can listen to yourself. Listening is great for your interactions with other people. It's a gift. So it's part of the generosity and kindness, but it's also a way of paying attention to what's going on. Sometimes we really have to be quiet. We almost always have to be quiet to listen. That's a gift to yourself and to others, but it's also kind of teaches you some receptivity and openness. Sometimes in class, I don't know who's listening. So sometimes in class, some people talk a lot and some people talk a little bit. And it's the professor's job to kind of be the conductor and say, thank you so much. We've heard a lot from you. How about you over there? We haven't heard so much from you. So, encouraging other people to listen as well, and encouraging people to listen to you. You might be surrounded by a lot of people who are super talkative, and you have to fight to get your voice out. So listening, learning to listen, being generous in listening, those are good things, but also encouraging other people to listen carefully so they can really understand. I do find that that's a really important thing that is kind of at issue right now with the protests. I think often people are saying, we are not being heard, raising your voice in protest. That's about wanting to be heard, wanting to be listened to, wanting to be taken into account. So yes, we are part of those protests, hopefully, and we want our voices to be heard. We also need to do our share of listening. And it's important to keep on listening through your life. It's important not to move into thinking, okay, now I'm older, so I don't have to listen anymore. I can just tell everybody else what to do. It's important to keep listening so that the generations get heard, so that people understand and you understand. You have to keep growing in your perspectives. Okay, next, asking hard questions. So by this, I don't just mean, how do I make bread? Or should I apply to grad school? I mean, asking hard questions. This is like the critical thinking part. What questions are being overlooked? What questions are uncomfortable? Why do some people not want to ask those questions? So keep struggling with really big questions. Again, I think these protests that are happening now and the Black Lives Matter and the support for missing and murdered Indigenous women's families, all of those so often are about why have we not been willing as a society to ask questions about how we take care of these people better? Who am I neglecting to notice? How do we achieve equality? It's tempting to say, big questions. Yeah, hard to answer. But I want you to keep struggling with those questions. It should be a guiding part of your career, that you keep asking what hasn't been answered yet, what still needs solving in society. Sometimes academics get to points where they feel like, okay, I've got my research stream. I'm on a career track. I just need to keep publishing on these particular topics. Or I'm an authority on whatever, me and my field, sort of business ethics. Or I wrote for a long time on how people make ethical decisions and how men and women think about ethical decisions. And then, then as I was writing about feminist theory, I noticed that, well, I had been asked to write a book on feminist theory. I'm still writing it because I keep discovering there's more that I hadn't learned about yet. And my youngest child came out as non-binary, and I thought, oh, crumb, okay, I have to rethink gender. I have to rethink what feminism means. Who's included? What, why have I not asked that question? Why have I just assumed that I knew everything there was to know about gender by understanding what I thought was male and female? So, even when you're far along and you think you've got things figured out, you have to still be willing to ask hard questions. Otherwise, you turn into kind of a blob. It's not really fun to listen to people who just want to expound on what they've known for 30 or 40 years. It doesn't make you a very interesting person, and you don't keep growing. So keep asking hard questions that you don't know the answer to, and be willing to let other people tell you what the important questions are. Sometimes you think you know all the important questions, but keep listening so that you find out other people's important questions. The last one is move. I'm discovering, I'm 67, and pretty happy with being 67. I've accomplished a lot. But I've discovered I bump into other people. So often I just hang out with graduate students there and other students. They're sort of the most interesting people in my life. And then sometimes I get together with class reunions, or I go meet other friends from other times in my life. And I look around and I think, when did all these people my age get so old? This is ridiculous. Why are these people using walkers? Why can't they sit cross-legged on the floor? They're not even doing yoga. What's going on here? And I realized that a lot of people my age, by their mid-60s, some people are not really able to move very much. I'm not trying to fault people or blame people. I know their illnesses and I know their degenerative conditions. I'm not trying to put blame on people, but I'm trying to encourage you. Keep dancing, keep bicycling, keep rollerblading, swimming, walking, playing tennis. Those are all things you can do alone. There are teams, team sports will come back undoubtedly, and just keep doing those. Keep on moving. You can't be an active brain and a sedentary body. It doesn't work that way. I'm sure that you know how often you might get stuck thinking about something, and then finally you get outside and you think, oh, wow, okay, I should have been moving a long time ago. So just do that. So you could do all four of these things: generosity, listening, asking hard questions, and moving. You could go for a walk and do all these things at once. Of course, I hope that you will do other versions of that as well. But you could go for a walk, take somebody with you, listen to them, ask some hard questions together, and there you go. You're meeting all those, but keep finding ways to do all those things. Those are what I think are important to live a good life.
Thank you very much, Robbin, for that. I really like how you managed those four sort of, I'm going to call them pillars, but those four emphasized focuses you have there. Because as you were going through your advice, I kept finding myself reflecting back even on my day-to-day activities and am I doing this well enough? I don't know. Most people who know me know that I do tend to talk a lot. So I might have been one of those students in the audience that you had to have been like, okay, we've heard lots from you, maybe focus on this other one. But as I move into my career, I'm finding I need to myself reflect and lean on my colleagues and friends to remind me to stop and listen more actively, right? So that listening pillar really hit home with me. So with that in mind, we have lots of time for some questions for Robbin. If anybody would like to post those questions, just a reminder, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and then I'll pass those along to her. While we're waiting for some questions to pop in, I did, since I said I like to learn myself about how I can reflect and grow from the sorts of things my peers and colleagues can teach me, and friends, and just any random person you meet. One of the first jobs I had was working in a Denny's, and I loved the regulars who'd come in for coffee and the types of things you could learn just having a conversation with those people. So, how do you find a balance when you're passionate about something between, speaking out about what you believe in, but also making sure you're listening to others and their perspectives that they're providing?
I think some of it is being convinced that other people have good things to say. I mean, sometimes we're tempted to believe that what we have to say is the most important thing, and convincing other people that of our viewpoints. And I think that one of the advantages, or possibly one of the strengths that I have in teaching, is that I'm really excited by learning from my students. I'm really eager to hear what they have to say, and I'm not convinced that I am sort of the sage up in front of the room, and that lecturing is really my best plan here because everybody needs to hear from me. So I think, some of those things, kindness and generosity and listening, come together in really loving to hear what other people have to say and being eager to learn what other people are thinking about, because that will make my life richer and more interesting. I'll have different perspectives, and that would be so much more interesting than just knowing what I know now. That, I don't want to just stop there.
So you kind of talked a bit on this, and you did touch on this in your talk about, how academics or anyone in life, as they become sort of knowledgeable and experts in their field, have to keep asking hard questions and sort of finding those new questions that keep us learning and keep us excited and challenged and informed. So I guess you kind of touched on with your own child and the coming out as non-binary, but do you, and you said you mentioned you worked on this feminist book, but what are some of the really important questions in society today, or hard questions that you see sort of these students moving forward potentially addressing and taking on?
I knew I should have thought of this ahead of time. I think there are so many big questions. Why do we have the resources that we have, that we brag about as a society, and we can't feed people? Why are there homeless people? Why do we judge people for what they consume? And why do we feel threatened by some people? How could we diffuse that threat? If we approach people more and stop putting barriers around ourselves, would we get a little better at understanding where they were? A lot of what I wish people would ask more are questions about how to be more understanding, how to create a better society where everyone is thriving. I still wonder why power corrupts. Each time we get a new president or a new dean or a new provincial, premier, I think, how long is this nice person going to continue seeming like a nice person, and what will be that process that corrupts them with the power? I don't really know the answer to that question. I tried asking Andy Haken one time, and we had kind of an interesting discussion. But I'm really interested in asking why people can't tolerate certain things and why people get barriers up. And I grew up in a family that had a pretty strict moral code. And I really struggled in my 20s as I started asking new questions about what kinds of relationships I wanted to have, about holding on to that particular moral code. And when I started questioning it, I realized that I was being quite threatening to my relationship with my mother. And, so then we have to sort of make choices about being true to ourselves and supporting what other people believe as well. And that's really hard. So those are worth struggling with.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed the portion of your lecture where you discussed your first topic about small acts of kindness, and then tied that in later a bit to listening. Before you even got to listening, you were already talking about listening a bit, because I agree fully with you that a lot of these students moving forward into their careers and their next phase in life, they might not realize that just those small little things they can do could have a profound effect on someone. That one day you might do that small kind act. And I also, earlier, I don't know if you caught Janae Nugent's last lecture, but she talked a lot about finding your voice and bringing your voice out. And I think your talk also hit on that, right? And how do we use our liberal education voice to do these things? So, I think one of the hardest parts for people that I found, that the reason that they try to get there, they kind of, like you said, your back's up against the wall, aren't as accepting, is because they're worried about being taken advantage of, or being too kind. And so, do you have any wisdom for people on sort of how you can keep kindness as your core quality that you always exhibit without not being taken advantage of?
Yeah, it's true. Kindness can be taken advantage of. I think that's the point of kindness, to be taken advantage of. We want people to accept that kindness and feel that kindness. So yeah, sometimes there's an imbalance. I do think that sometimes people, I don't know, certainly in business, or even sometimes I guess in teacher-student relationships, people think of kindness as sort of a weakness. Oh, people are gonna, see me as a pushover or something. I can't be that generous. I can't be that understanding or that nice or that compassionate. And I just feel like, throw that out the window. Yes, you can. Do those things. Go overboard. Be generous, be kind, be compassionate. It's not going to go to waste.
Yeah.
It will benefit people in ways that we don't know. We'll set examples. Maybe it will cost you something. Obviously, protect yourself. Don't be vulnerable. Don't, give away everything that you have, that sort of thing. So yeah, be careful, be smart, be wise, but go overboard with kindness. I'm for that.
Yeah. We actually had a really good question from Richard Lee Ty in the audience, and he was asking if you could, if there was a time that someone did something kind for you that had a real life change for you, that had that kind of impact on you. That's putting you on the spot a bit to remember.
Yeah. Gosh. Interesting question. I'm sure that I'll think about it, and then I'll want to get back to Richard later. But, in many ways, I feel like the kinds of openness and trust that people have given me in talking about their lives, in sharing things and coming to me with questions. My kids are included in these. My non-binary child in trusting me and talking about that. That's such an amazing gift. And I think that people do that, it all becomes very reciprocal, and we become trustworthy people as people trust us more, and we, people give back. We do recreate the world as we do that. So I think, sometimes business people say, in response to things like business ethics discussions or corporate social responsibility, or just kindness or compassion in the workplace, people say, oh, that's not the real world, and get real, and this is, sort of got to be tough and all that. I just feel like, well, you get to create the world you're in. So you go through the world being tough and mean, and that's the world that you're in. But if you choose to go through the world differently, that's what people are going to respond to you with. Not every single time. You may give away more than you think you're getting, but that's not really true. The kinds of trust that you'll, endear in other people, and the kind of confidence and examples that you'll set, I think that those are life-changing as we start that process, both in giving and receiving.
Well, thank you very much, Robin, for that wonderful last lecture and for your kind words and wisdom for the students, current, past, present, future.
I want to
And
say, I recognize that as an older woman with white hair, I can get away with so much kindness that sometimes other people don't feel like that. You know, I can button up anybody's coat, people will hand me their kids. So I have some privilege in that area. But I think that you can find ways of being who you are and being generous and, you know, building in some of your own trust and generosity that way. Thank you.
thank you very much.